Imagine this. You're at the most important meeting of your life, or you're sitting at the most important exam that you ever have to take, and suddenly you remember every single detail, impressing everyone in the room, impressing yourself and all your teachers with razor-sharp recall. Sounds like an overblown promise, right? Well, what if I told you that this superpower, this ability to simply sit down, focus, and recall the most critical information that will make the biggest difference in your life, was accessible to everyone thanks to a 15th century legal genius. Not only a legal genius who did really great in his own career, but one who believed that every single person was capable of experiencing the same epic levels of memory ability that he did. I've been thinking about this guy for a while. His name is Peter of Ravenna, and he was a scholar, a legal scholar specifically, who traveled all over, spoke multiple languages, and his memory prowess was nothing short of legendary. Now, some people complain that he bragged a lot about it, but we have independent confirmation that what he said in his book on his memory was true. And even if other people exaggerated on his behalf, the reality is that there are people who use memory techniques. They demonstrate them very well, and so it's not that outlandish to think that he wasn't just patting himself on the back. And the best part about it all is that Peter of Ravenna did more than just demonstrate publicly his use of the techniques. He did more than just demonstrate that he could speak multiple languages or recite texts verbatim from mind. He showed us his mastery of the art of mental organization by writing a book as legendary as Peter of Ravenna himself. It's called The Phoenix. At least that's the title we often use as shorthand. And it's a beautiful, beautiful text. And people have been asking me for years about Ravenna's extraordinary abilities to recall long texts verbatim from memory, to name multiple people in a room, to speak multiple languages, and to be at the top of his game in his profession. So, can you really walk into a lecture hall and deliver entire talks without notes? Well, yes, and I've done it. And that's just one reason why I decided to bring back Peter of Ravenna's incredible work in a new version, because I didn't quite just bring it back. I made it new. But before I spend any more time letting you know about what I've done in a new version called Phoenix Reborn, let me tell you about what makes Ravenna's The Phoenix so special, so profound, and why it influenced so many people, including the legendary Giordano Bruno, who many people who watch this channel know. Bruno, who took one lesson in particular from Ravenna that you're not going to want to miss, that I'll tell you about later in this video. And oh, for the love of memory, hit that thumbs up. Help me help the robots remember that we humans care about this great memory tradition, these old memory books that are filled with so many gems that give us better living through better memory. And if you're not subscribed yet and you like frequent free memory training videos, hit that subscribe button and enable notifications so you don't miss a thing as I continue to unfold the history of these techniques, the best that memory science has to offer, and everything I've learned from all my friends in the memory competition world. Peter of Ravenna's training has influenced all of us who use memory techniques, even if we don't know about it. And his influence is because of this. He has many, many takes on major mnemonic techniques, and the first really helped him mystify his peers because he went beyond using visual mnemonics. So many people get caught up in the idea that you have to see pictures in your mind or be creative. But Ravenna was into making it so much simpler than that. And he worked out ways to use the alphabet, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but to rapidly create what you might think of as narratives or mini vignettes, stories, but not anything you had to create. things that relied on information that was already in your memory.
Whoa.
And this method, this specific approach, made recalling complex information not about retrieval, not about using a technique. It made it an adventure. And this has been so infectious that people copied his book over and over and over again. And one of the best memory teachers, Giordano Bruno, he didn't copy it, but he echoes the text in so many ways. And you can tell by the way that Peter of Ravenna writes that he absolutely felt the adventure himself. And why was it so adventurous to use his approach to memory techniques? Because he just made it simple and clear what to do and how to do it. And he didn't make it more complicated than it needed to be. So even if you don't read Phoenix Reborn, my new version, here's something that will help you get more physical in your mind, because physicality is one of the keys that he brings to his memory teaching that is so profound. Next time you're using memory techniques, whether you're using a memory palace or just doing it in the void of your mind, have your mnemonic associations interact in a way that you can feel physically in your mind's muscle, so to speak, in your mind's hand, in your mind's feet. And if you struggle to make that happen, well, reach out and touch a wall as you either make a new memory palace and associations in it, or you use a memory palace that you already have. This physicality will help you get into the kinesthetics of what memory techniques can be. Please don't miss this. It's very, very, very powerful. Now, the next secret involves exactly how Ravenna built a labyrinth of multiple memory palaces without ever once confusing himself. At least, I don't think he confused himself, although I suppose it is possible to get confused. And maybe he did, and he learned lessons, but his lessons in this book will help you avoid confusion. The key to his practice of multiple memory palaces, which he says involves more than 100,000 stations in what must have been thousands of memory palaces, it boils down to how he used the features on buildings. And he often chose locations that were embedded with personal significance. And this personal significance was related to some of the content he memorized. This is very, very key. And you can take this principle right now and start designing your memory palaces by either choosing locations with significant personal landmarks or thinking about how you can take a less personal location and make it feel more personal. So how would you do that? Well, one, we've just covered. Reach out and touch a wall. If you find that a bank is not all that personal to you, go in there and touch a wall. Now, you might want to look for the security cameras to make sure that people aren't thinking you're weird. And, maybe not a bank, but a library or a cafe or even a clothing store that you visit with your partner that you're not all that into. Get into it and make it more personal. Touch the walls. But also, you could imagine yourself as having a kind of movie camera in your head and turning your journey into a movie, injecting your personal energy into it. So now you're framing it visually, but you're also touching walls, etc. You're personalizing it. And this will help make each and every memory palace more meaningful for you because you played a kind of imaginary game inside of it. You got out of your adult head and you took off your adult pants just for a second, and then you played a game. And then later you put your adult pants on and you actually use these techniques for serious information that improves your life. This is ultimately going to help you hold information that you need to remember a lot better because of this personalization. And then you're going to be able to use the recall rehearsal patterns that create long-term memory so much easier. Okay, so those are two really, really powerful things that go on in the Phoenix. You might be wondering, well, why is it called the Phoenix? Well, because we're going to burn away our ignorance. We're going to burn away our habits that lead us to forgetting. And we're going to give new life to that childlike fascination with the world. And we're going to be on fire for memory itself. Now, you may have heard me talk before in the past on this channel about Aristotle's nuclear alphabet. And I know a lot of people, they like to tell me, Anthony, you don't know how to pronounce the word nuclear. give it a rest. This is the shibboleth of so many strange things, this idea that there's some special way to pronounce nuclear. The whole point is that the alphabet explodes. And with all due respect to the revered philosopher named Aristotle, who you know I absolutely love and adore, Ravenna was after something a lot more than just arguing about how to pronounce nuclear, and he wasn't even particularly interested in a nuclear alphabet. He was after the power of the sun itself. And when you discover how Ravenna built upon the basic concept of Aristotle's A to Z alphabetical arrangements inside of memory palaces and the idea of using the alphabet to make peg words, well, he gets into applying this to vowels and consonants in particular ways. And this will move your practice from nuclear to stellar fusion, literally exploding bigger and brighter in your mind. And everything in your memory practice will become so much more vivid, interconnected, and of course, much more magnetic, which means more memorable. But also, I call my work the magnetic memory method because magnets not only attract the important information that improves your life, but it helps repel the distractions. Now, to be fair, Ravenna's consonant and vowel technique is probably one of the hardest aspects to understand. But that's why in Phoenix Reborn, I've added both a commentary and exercises that will help you master it quickly. And if you're interested in Phoenix Reborn, I didn't just make a new version of existing text. I rewrote it from scratch so that it's easier to understand for the 21st century reader. And the commentary makes it even easier to understand still, because there are always going to be little parts of memory trainings that might make you scratch your head. In fact, when I first read it years ago, I also scratched my head and I had to think about it. And thinking isn't actually a bad thing, but you don't have to spend all the time that I sat around thinking, what does this mean? Because I have shared with you what I worked out. And I believe it's fairly accurate. And even if it isn't, you also can think about it in a new and different way because you have both the original text that I worked from, you have my rewrite, you can see for yourself how I changed it, you have my commentary, and you have the exercises that I suggest in order to help you get the benefit out of this particular approach that I myself have benefited from for decades now. Now, I have every reason to believe that Ravenna would approve of the changes that I've made for the modern reader, but I'll admit that it is a bit controversial. So in the introduction and the preface to the book, I explain why I decided to do this in this particular way, and I hope that you'll agree. But at the end of the day, if you've read the text before, or one of many different versions which have different things in them, I hope that you will agree that I have made this as clear and direct and focused as possible, but without making it too simple, right? Because Phoenix Reborn was prepared with you in mind and with everything we know about contemporary memory science, which means that we do need to take on a little bit of challenge in order to grow. It's just the principle of active recall, and you can read all about that in the memory science if you like. I certainly haven't been shy about sharing that very important message. The point is that this is not a one-size-fits-all book. It's not a book at all, really. It's a guide. It's a living, breathing manifestation of a text that is part of a larger framework of people sharing their delight with what using memory techniques does for the mind. And the exercises will help you move from where you are right now to where you want to be. You'll get the ebook, the audiobook, so you can go through the text in more than one medium. And since I love to over-deliver, there's a not-so-little top-secret bonus for people who love videos too. So if you'd like my version of this legendary text, along with a detailed commentary and exercises, well, I suggest you get it right now while I'm celebrating this new release at a very special price for a very short time only. Now later you can still get it in a different way from the Magnetic Memory Method store, but either way, please stop settling for the generic and now increasingly artificial memory improvement books created by anonymous authors who can't be bothered to answer questions or delight your mind with endless angles on these techniques week after week, like I do here on the YouTube channel, on my blog, on my podcast, etc. With Phoenix Reborn, you're literally entering a living tradition as I have worked to keep it alive, from my own particular perspective, of course. But my perspective has never been my own. It's always, from almost the very beginning, been influenced by Peter of Ravenna. And with Phoenix Reborn, you'll unlock your legendary potential together with me, someone who actually cares, someone who continues to fight to remind you that in the realm of memory, as in life, the only one who sets limits on what's possible is you. So if I hold you responsible to your goals, sorry, not sorry. Anyway, Ravenna believed, and he says it in the very beginning of his book, that he knows everyone can master mnemonics in the same way that he used them to establish his legend. And I believe that too, as did many other memory masters, including Giordano Bruno, who has been so important to our tradition. Now, I mentioned that there's one thing that Bruno copied from Ravenna, or perhaps better said, echoed, alluded to. And to be fair to those who support my work and who support their own development as learners by getting books like these, I'm going to share that with you in the form of a clue. For the true masters of mind and memory, using mnemonics was never, ever, and is not now merely about storing information. Memory is merely the path to unlocking wisdom. But to unlock that wisdom, you need to replace effort with engagement that taps into the natural associative powers of your brain almost on autopilot. Now, maybe you already know what that great key is, or maybe you're about to find out. Either way, with Phoenix Reborn, you'll start to experience information in intuitive ways that make you feel excited and alive. And as always, that's what the magnetic memory method is all about. And if you are watching this and you're not yet convinced that you can do it, and you're like, what's all this Aristotle and Bruno stuff? And you're curious about what on earth could be better than Aristotle's nuclear alphabet, a nuclear explosion. What could be more powerful than that? Well, grab that link for Phoenix Reborn, grab it while you have the chance to get it at a discount, and then study Aristotle's nuclear alphabet next.